Arizona Territory, 1879. The sky bled gold behind the red cliffs as dusk crawled in over the dry wash. Wind kicked dust across the trail like restless spirits. A coyote cried far off, but no one answered. Along a lonely bend in the road, a wagon creaked forward. Then a figure stepped from the brush, a woman, gun raised, eyes hard. "Step down," she said, voice like gravel and thunder. The man at the reins blinked against the sun. His hands went up slow. She didn't shake, didn't flinch, but she was trembling somewhere deeper. Not from fear, from hunger, from whatever had burned behind her that drove her here. "You're robbing the wrong man," he said, not mocking. "Just calm. Keep talking and I'll fix that," she snapped. He stepped down slow, boots crunching gravel. His horse shifted uneasy. He watched her, not the gun, but her. Her mud-streaked hem, her jaw locked like a trap, her eyes fierce and lost at once. "You don't want what's in that wagon," he said. "Not really." She climbed onto the seat. Her hands moved fast, opening the crate behind him. Flour, dried apples, a pouch of coins. She grabbed them all. "You forgot one thing," he said. She spun, gun-trained. "What?" "My last name." She blinked, confused. "It's Thorne. And if you're going to steal my wagon, you might as well take my name too." Her knees gave out. The gun clattered. She slumped to the dirt. "I haven't eaten in 2 days," she muttered. He caught her before she hit the ground, wrapped his coat around her like it meant something. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Julietta James." He nodded. "Then come with me, Julietta. Let's get you fed. Then we figure out the rest." The wagon rolled slow along the canyon floor wheels, grinding dust that hadn't seen rain in weeks. The man driving it, Elias Thorne, was used to silence out here, but not the kind that followed him now. Not the kind that came with a gun pressed between his shoulder blades. "Keep going," the voice behind him ordered. A woman's voice, ragged, dry as mesquite bark. He didn't turn, just kept the horses steady. "You sure this is what you want to do?" She didn't answer. He knew fear when it crawled up your spine. This wasn't fear. This was desperation dressed as defiance. "Look," he said quietly. "I've got a rifle strapped beneath this seat. If you were planning to shoot, you would have done it already. So maybe shut up." And then she collapsed. Hard. He barely caught her as she fell from the wagon seat, arms limp, gun tumbling from her hand into the dirt. Her skin was hot, flushed with fever and sunburn. Her lips cracked. She was bones wrapped in dust and worn fabric. "I haven't eaten in 2 days," she whispered before everything went dark. Elias lifted her like she weighed nothing. He'd seen animals starve on the trail before he knew that look. But this was no animal. This was a woman who had tried to hold herself together with grit alone. She'd nearly pulled it off. He built a fire fast at the base of a rock wall using dry twigs and pine pitch. He laid her close to the warmth, shaded her with a canvas, and ladled water from his canteen into her mouth. Slow, measured. She stirred but didn't speak. Around them the desert stretched out, cruel, unbothered, and watching. She could have died out here. Would have, and no one would have known her name. But Elias would, because when she opened her eyes again that night, her first word was, "Della." "Who's Della?" he asked. "My daughter," she rasped. "And Drew? They're gone. Gone." The kind of word that didn't need explanation. He leaned back, watching her with something sharper than sympathy. "You were trying to get to them." She nodded once weakly. That was it. That was the moment his path split from routine and turned toward something else, toward her. "You're not dying out here," he said. She turned her head, barely able to meet his eyes. "And you're not getting them back alone." The fire popped once, like the land itself was listening. He stood, dusted off, and stared out into the night. Whoever had taken her kids had just earned themselves a problem. And his name was Elias Thorne. Julietta woke to the smell of bacon. The fire crackled low beside her. The coat draped over her shoulders wasn't hers. It was thick, warm, worn soft by time and miles. Elias Thorne sat across the flames, stirring a tin pot, not looking at her. She blinked, disoriented. Her body ached like it had been stitched back together wrong. But for the first time in days, there was no gun at her head, no boots chasing her shadow. Just the hush of open land and a man who hadn't left. "You're safe?" he said, finally glancing up. "Eat something." He passed her a plate without asking questions. She took it, hands shaking. Hunger tore through the last of her pride. She ate fast, eyes flicking between him and the horses grazing behind them. He didn't press, didn't pry. When she tried to stand, her knees wobbled. He reached a hand out, not forcing, just offering. She took it. Later, he showed her how to hitch the mare, his mule. She barely spoke, but he walked her through each step, steady voice like a rope keeping her anchored. That night, when the cold crept in, he wordlessly laid a blanket between their bedrolls and stoked the fire higher. Respect, not pity. Distance, but not coldness. It kept happening, little things. He handed her the reins without hesitation. He drew a map of trading posts by memory, giving her names, trails, people he trusted. When she flinched at a loud snap in the woods, he stood up slow, scanning the brush. No questions, just ready. She'd met men who wanted to own her. This one offered space. And in that space, something fragile began to breathe again. On the third night, as she sat brushing her daughter's name into the dirt with a stick, he placed a folded shirt beside her. "It's clean," he said, then walked away. She pressed it to her face and cried. He never said anything about it. By the fifth day, she started talking. Bits and pieces. How she'd trusted the wrong woman, how her kids were taken, how she'd walked until her shoes fell apart. He listened. Just listened. And when she asked why he didn't turn her in, why he gave a damn, he didn't have some speech ready. "I believe in second chances," Elias said, "and I believe you're worth one." That was it. No promises. Just firelight and truth. When they reached the next town, she walked beside him, not behind. Eyes up, chin lifted, because someone had seen her and not turned away. And that was enough for now. If this story grabbed your heart, don't let it go quietly. Like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes in second chances. Because out here in the wild, sometimes all it takes to start over is one man refusing to walk away. They made camp by a cottonwood that night, near a creek bed gone dry. The stars blinked awake in a wide Arizona sky, and the wind stirred just enough to keep the coyotes quiet. Elias was fixing the harness strap. His hands steady back turned when Julieta finally spoke. "I left them in Prescott," she said. "He didn't ask who. He didn't need to. I paid a woman to watch them. I knew her from the laundry house. She said she'd keep him safe while I worked the mines up north. I sent money every 2 weeks. I believed her." Her voice didn't crack, but something inside did, like wood splintering. "I came back with my pay in a little pouch. Had a doll in there, too, cheap rag thing for Della. She loved red. Used to tie string in her hair and call herself a queen." She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. He set the harness down and sat by the fire. Still quiet. She was gone. Julieta continued. "Both of them. The woman said she'd sold them, called it making do, said the mine work was done, and mouths were mouths." She pulled something from her satchel, a strip of fabric sun-faded red with a rough stitch along the edge. "It's all I had left. Della dropped it chasing chickens the day I left." Elias didn't move, didn't speak. Just let the moment breathe. "After that, I stopped talking, stopped trusting. Men offered help, but it always came with a price." She glanced at him, eyes hard. "You haven't asked for anything." He met her gaze. "I won't." That silence carried more weight than any vow. She rubbed her wrists, faint marks still showed where rope had once dug in. "I've had names I didn't choose. Places I couldn't escape. But I never stopped being their mother. Never." He stirred the fire once. "You're still her queen," he said gently. "And that little boy, he's still looking for you." Julieta looked down at the red cloth again, fingers tracing the hem. "I wake up reaching for them, every night. Just before I open my eyes, I feel their weight in my arms. And then it's gone." She didn't cry. She just breathed through it like someone who'd survived a flood and was still coughing out the water. He reached out, laid a hand over hers. Not to fix it, just to stay with her in the wreckage. "I'll help you find them," Elias said, "no matter how far it takes us." Julieta looked up, tears finally slipping down dust-worn cheeks. Not because she was weak, but because for once someone stayed when she spoke the truth. The next morning, before the sun had crested the ridge, Elias laid out a hand-drawn map on the wagon seat. The parchment was creased corners, soft with use. Julieta stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes scanning each mark. "These are the towns I've run goods through. Bisbee, Tombstone, and here Camp Verde. That's where I heard a rancher might be buying children under the table." Her jaw clenched. Then that's where we go. He nodded. No speeches, no reassurances, just two people ready to head straight into the fire. They packed the wagon fast tools, water-dried meat the coin Elias had stashed beneath the floorboard. Julieta found a leather holster tucked under the seat. I'm not letting you ride unarmed, he said, handing her a short-barreled revolver. She's old but reliable. Just like me. She raised a brow. That's supposed to comfort me. He grinned. Only a little. By midday, they'd left the canyon behind. The trail curved hard west where the sun burned brighter and the roads grew meaner. Every time they passed a rider, Julieta watched with sharp eyes. Every shadow got measured. That evening, Elias set up camp near a bluff. While he unrolled the bedrolls, Julieta practiced with the revolver. He showed her how to steady the grip, how to line up the shot by feel, not just sight. You ever fire one before, he asked. Once. But the wrong man handed it to me. He didn't ask for details, just showed her again. She hit a tin can on the second try. Later, as they cooked beans over the fire, she helped him mend the harness strap, fingers working beside his in silence. When it snapped too tight and cut her thumb, he reached for her hand, wiping the blood with his sleeve before she could flinch. People like us, she said softly. We don't usually get second tries, then let's make this one count. She glanced over the firelight. Why help me? Really? Elias didn't answer right away. He stirred the pot once more, then looked her in the eye. Because no one helped my sister when she needed it. I can't undo that, but maybe I can do this. Julieta didn't speak, but something inside her, something buried deep beneath scars and silence, shifted. It didn't break. It opened. By the time the stars came out, they'd marked 2 routes and circled a name: Boone Kelly, the trader who once worked with the woman who sold her kids. Tomorrow they would ride into Camp Verde, but tonight they sat shoulder to shoulder by the fire, steam rising from tin cups, the sound of night pressing close. Not lovers, not strangers. Something in between. Partners. The sun was barely up when they reached the ranch. It sat low in a dust bowl outside Camp Verde, broken fence lines, a crooked windmill, and a wide front porch that had seen too many lies. A man stepped out, wiping his hands on a blood-stained rag like he'd been gutting meat. Julieta stiffened. That's him, she whispered. Boone Kelly. The man who bought children like horses and sold them like crates of apples. Elias dropped down firsthand, brushing near his holster but not drawing. We're looking for 2 kids, he called out, Della and Drew. Girls 7, boys 5. Boone didn't blink. Ain't got kids here. Julieta stepped forward, revolver drawn, hand steady, voice colder than the desert wind. You sold them, she said. A month ago. Took them from a woman named Cassie Lynn. You remember her? Boone's grin faltered. You got no proof. I got their names. I got the rag my daughter dropped. And I got nothing left to lose. Elias stood beside her now. No words. Just presence. Boone reached for his belt too fast. Julieta didn't hesitate. She fired once into the dirt at his feet. Next one lands higher. The standoff sucked the air dry. Boone looked at her again, saw the fire, the mother who'd walked across a hellscape to stand here. And maybe for the first time he realized she wasn't bluffing. They're in the barn, he muttered. With the others. Julieta stormed past him. Elias stayed behind, gun-drawn eyes sharp. Inside the barn, hay dust thick in the air, she found them. Crouched near a feed barrel, dirty, afraid but alive. Della. She choked. The little girl blinked, then leapt forward. Mama Julieta dropped to her knees. Drew clung to her waist, sobbing into her side. She held them both, heart pounding like it would crack her ribs wide open. Elias appeared at the doorway. They're safe, he asked. She nodded, tears streaking dirt down her cheeks. They're mine again. Back outside, Boone stood cuffed to his own gatepost, bleeding from the pride he lost more than the wound on his hand. You going to kill me? He spat. No. Julieta said, steady now. You're going to talk. Names, towns, every buyer you ever dealt with. He laughed once until Elias walked up and broke his nose with one clean punch. You'll talk, Elias said. Or you'll beg someone else to. They rode out at dusk, the children bundled in blankets, the trail behind them already fading. That night by the fire, Julieta sat beside Elias, arms wrapped around her children. They tried to break me, she whispered, but I didn't break. Elias looked at her eyes, fierce and full of awe. No, you became fire. So, If this moment hit you hard, don't just sit there. Like, share, and subscribe to keep these Wild West legends alive. Because out here, survival is just the start. Redemption is the real ride. They reached the homestead by the end of the week. The porch still sagged, the roof leaned like an old man's shoulder, but the land stretched wide and quiet around them. No voices yelling, no boots chasing, just space and the chance to breathe. Elias helped the children down from the wagon. Della ran toward the well laughing as the rope creaked. Drew held a carved wooden spoon Elias had whittled him during the ride. He waved it like a sword. Julieta stood by the door, hand resting on the frame. "We'll need a new latch," she said. "I've got one in the toolbox," Elias replied. Stubborn little brass piece from a trade in Florence. They didn't speak of the ranch, not yet. The ache was too fresh, the dirt of it still clinging. Instead, they spoke in tasks nails tin sheets where the best morning light hit for a garden. By mid-morning, the children were stacking firewood and Julieta was mixing cornbread beside the old stove. Elias climbed the ladder to patch the roof. He paused at the top hammer dangling from his belt, watching her through the open window. She looked up once met his gaze. No words, just a nod. They worked through the day, quiet, steady, side by side. The kind of work that wears you out but sets something right inside. By sundown, the new latch clicked shut smooth. Julieta tested it twice, then stepped back with her arms crossed. She didn't smile, but the quiet in her shoulders said enough. They ate dinner on the porch. Beans, cornbread, and strong coffee. Della showed off a drawing she made with coal on the back of a feed sack, 4 stick figures, and a crooked house. Julieta traced her finger over it like it was a map home. When the wind picked up, Elias wrapped the blanket tighter around the kids and leaned back against the rail. The stars were slow to come out, but when they did, they came bold. Julieta cleaned the tin plates, then joined him. She sat knees tucked up, gaze on the field beyond the garden fence. "I didn't think we'd get this far," she said. "We didn't," Elias replied. "You did." She glanced at him, then looked back toward the barn where the light from the lantern spilled through a crack in the wall. "I'll fix that too," he added. "Not tonight," she said. "Tonight's enough." He nodded. Drew had fallen asleep curled beside Della, both children bundled in a quilt. The porch creaked beneath them, old wood settling into silence. "I don't know what tomorrow brings," Julieta murmured. "You don't have to," Elias said. "We'll meet it when it comes." And in the hush between words, between breath and wind and stars, there was peace. Not perfect, not polished, but earned. And that was enough. Ending. Quiet belonging. The rains came late that spring. Soft at first, just enough to darken the dirt beneath the wagon wheels, but steady like the land had been holding its breath for too long. Julieta stood barefoot on the porch as the drops hit the roof, her skirt hem damp. Her arms crossed beneath a wool shawl Elias had mended by hand. Inside, the children were bent over a slate board practicing numbers with chalk. Della hummed softly. Drew had his tongue between his teeth, focused on getting the 6 turned the right way. Elias came in from the barn, boots muddy, sleeves rolled. He leaned the shovel by the door and nodded toward the window. "Roof's holding." Julieta looked over her shoulder. "No leaks. Not a one." She nodded once. Approval, not surprise. He'd fixed it right the first time. She moved toward the stove, checking on the bread. The scent of cornbread and coffee filled the cabin, curling into corners like safety. The fire crackled low behind them, and the children chattered in their own soft rhythm. "Did I tell you Drew wants chickens?" Elias asked. Julieta raised a brow. "He doesn't know what it takes to feed one. He says he'll learn, says he wants to build the coop himself." "Well then," she said, pouring coffee, "we'd better teach him right." Later they sat outside, watching the clouds drift over the foothills. The storm had passed, but its weight lingered in the damp wood and the hush of the wind that brushed over the garden plot. Julieta sipped from her cup and stared out past the fence line. "You think this'll last?" "I don't know," Elias answered honestly, "but we built it with our own hands. Brick by brick, day by day. So if it doesn't last, we build again." She didn't reply, but he saw the corners of her mouth soften. Della came outside with her drawing, another stick figure family, but this time the house had smoke curling from the chimney. Drew followed, carrying a hammer too big for him and dragging a plank behind him like a promise. Elias stood. "Tomorrow we teach him to measure twice, cut once." Julieta reached for the folded clothesline beside her. "Tomorrow we hang that curtain." He nodded. "Tomorrow's looking full." As the sun dipped, they lit the lantern and watched the cabin glow behind them. Not fancy, not much by the world's measure, but theirs. Julieta looked at Elias, dust on his boots, scar on his chin sleeves rolled to the elbow, and saw not a rescuer but a partner, a man who didn't fix her but stood beside her while she fixed herself. "Come inside," she said, voice soft but firm. "It's getting cold." He followed without a word. The door shut behind them with a clean new click. No lock, just a latch that worked from the inside. And in a land where the wind came hard, that was everything.